Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're deconstructing a really stark, deeply thought-provoking open letter by an author named Kirthan Gala.
Yeah, it's titled Society Often Protects the Wrong Person.
Right. And our mission today is basically to examine the author's highly specific perspective on parental manipulation. We're specifically looking at his argument for how children can be completely weaponized, in the aftermath of a relationship breakdown.
But before we really get into the mechanics of this, we need to be incredibly clear with you about the nature of this source material.
Yeah, hopefully.
The text we're diving into contains a highly specific, very gendered viewpoint. The author focuses exclusively on the dynamic of manipulative mothers and victimized fathers.
Exactly. And our goal today is absolutely not to endorse these viewpoints or, take sides or validate any broad generalizations about men or women.
Right. We are treating this text as an artifact, really, just impartially exploring the arguments, the tactics, and the psychological dynamics exactly as the author presents them.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand the author's argument, we kind of have to look at this universal human instinct. Like, at the end of a long day, you walk through your front door, you turn the deadbolt, and you just exhale, right?
Yeah, you're safe.
Right. The logic is that the chaos and the threats are all out there. Inside those walls is your sanctuary. It's the one place where you don't have to, wear your armor.
But the author completely shatters that assumption.
He does. He argues that for some people, the moment the deadbolt clicks, they aren't locking the danger out. They are essentially locking themselves in with it.
Wow. Yeah.
The sanctuary quietly, almost imperceptibly, transforms into a battlefield. And the foundational dynamic he sets up to explain this, it involves taking a parent's absolute devotion and just hijacking it.
Yeah, he lays out a very traditional view of fatherhood, I think, to establish a baseline of sacrifice.
Right.
He details what a, quote, good father endures. This is a person who will voluntarily sacrifice his sleep, his money, his comfort, his pride, everything. Exactly. His personal opportunities for the well-being of his kids. And in a functional family unit, that level of sacrifice is the bedrock of stability. It builds trust.
Yeah.
But the author argues that a manipulative partner looks at that exact same devotion and interprets it through a completely different lens.
Like how so?
Well, where a healthy partner sees love in action, the manipulator sees leverage.
Leverage. I really want to focus on that word, leverage, because it changes the entire geometry of the relationship,
It really does.
I was trying to picture how this structural shift actually happens in real life. And if you think about it like a hostile corporate takeover, it actually starts to make a lot of sense.
Oh, I like that. How do you mean?
Well, imagine you build a company from the ground up, right? Pouring your blood, sweat, and tears into it. The crown jewel of your business is this incredible intellectual property you developed. It's your greatest asset.
Okay.
Then a bad actor comes along who just wants control. But they don't attack you directly. They figure out a way to buy a controlling stake in your prized IP. So suddenly, your greatest asset, which in this case is your absolute love for your children, has been flipped into your most exploitable liability.
Right.
They hold it hostage to dictate your behavior. So what does this all mean? How does this theoretical leverage actually manifest in the day-to-day reality of a family?
What's fascinating here is that corporate takeover idea you just mentioned. It captures the structural shift perfectly. The manipulator has this really dark realization, which is that they do not need to control their partner directly.
Because direct control is hard.
Exactly. Direct conflict is messy. It's physically and emotionally exhausting. And frankly, it often fails because people instinctively push back against direct control.
Sure, nobody likes being told what to do.
Right. Instead, they realize they only need to control access to what the partner loves most.
Wow.
If you control the bridge to the children, you control the partner. The father becomes entirely vulnerable to emotional blackmail at that point.
Because the stakes are so high.
Yeah, the cost of fighting back is no longer just losing an argument, right? It is losing the thing he values above all else.
But I'm struggling to picture what this theoretical leverage actually looks like on a, random Tuesday morning.
Right.
If someone is taking over your life and holding your relationship with your kids hostage, I'd expect screaming matches in the driveway. I'd expect dramatic blowouts and shattered plates.
Yeah, cinematic drama.
Right. But the author says it doesn't look like that at all.
No, he specifically warns against expecting that kind of explosive behavior. Most people imagine manipulation arrives with a bullhorn, But it rarely does. It begins really quietly. The author focuses on what he calls whispers.
Whispers.
Yeah. It is one passing comment, one gentle suggestion, just one carefully planted seed of doubt.
So it's not a bomb going off. It's more like termites in a house's foundation.
That's a great way to put it.
You don't see the damage happening on a random afternoon, but over months and years, the structural integrity of that child's relationship with the father is completely hollowed out.
Exactly. And the examples the text gives of these whispers are devastating, purely because of their subtlety.
What kind of things are they saying?
It's comments like, your father doesn't care, or your father chose something else today. And the most insidious one the author highlights is, if your father really loved you.
Oh, man. Your father really loved you. That is so heavy. Framing a boundary or an absence not as a circumstance, but as a lack of affection.
It creates a profound psychological crisis for the child. Like, this is a textbook example of cognitive dissonance.
Right, because their brain is holding two conflicting things.
Yes. The child's brain is basically forced to hold two completely conflicting realities at the exact same time. On one hand, they have their own lived experience and this natural bond with their father. But on the other hand, this highly trusted authority figure, the mother, in this text is constantly providing a counter-narrative that the father is deficient or uncaring.
And a kid can't handle that.
No human brain can sustain that level of internal conflict indefinitely, let alone a child's. To resolve that mental stress, the child usually adopts the narrative of the parent who holds the most immediate day-to-day power over their lives.
So the child slowly begins seeing the father through the manipulator's words instead of the father's actual actions.
Exactly.
The author points out that this is how fathers lose influence long before they ever physically lose access. They're basically being systematically erased from the child's internal world.
Yeah.
And as that erasure is happening, the actual physical time spent together becomes weaponized too. The author says love turns into a negotiation.
Because every single interaction carries tension. You have to realize the manipulator doesn't want peace. Peace doesn't serve their objectives.
Right, they want control.
They want power, so they ensure the environment is always slightly destabilized. Birthdays become battlegrounds, holidays turn into bargaining sessions. Visitation is treated purely as a venue for conflict. The father is reduced to negotiating terms just to, see his kid blow out the candles on a birthday cake.
Which brings up a massive question for me. If this behavior is so incredibly damaging, if it's literally turning birthdays into hostage negotiations, you'd think someone would notice.
You would think so.
Right. A teacher, a school counselor, a judge.
Yeah.
Someone would see the termite damage immediately. Why does nobody step in to stop it?
Well, the author argues that society wholly fails to intervene because of massive systemic blind spots.
Okay.
We operate under the assumption that our systems function based on objective truth, right? When in reality, they often function based on stereotypes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of how human psychology works, society relies heavily on heuristics.
Which are basically just mental shortcuts, right?
Exactly. The human brain is bombarded with information constantly. We don't have the time, the resources, or frankly, the cognitive energy to deeply investigate the nuance of every single family dynamic we encounter.
I mean, think about a family court judge.
Right, with a docket of 50 cases a day. Or a teacher with 30 students. They have to rely on default assumptions to make quick judgments.
And the ultimate societal default, the biggest mental shortcut we collectively take, is assuming that mothers inherently act in the child's best interest.
Yep. The default assumption is that the biological role of motherhood is entirely synonymous with nurturing, selflessness, and protection.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because the author writes this incredibly pointed line to challenge that exact shortcut.
What does he say?
He says, motherhood does not automatically create virtue. It does not automatically create wisdom. And it certainly does not automatically create emotional maturity.
Wow. That's a profound critique of how we assign moral superiority to a biological event.
It really is.
Because a manipulative person can literally hide behind the title of mother. When those overlated teachers, judges, or neighbors look at the situation, they just see the title.
Crazy.
Exactly. They see the halo effect of the word mom. They don't look closely enough to see the actual behavior.
And because of that halo, the manipulation continues completely unchecked. The terrifying reality is that the institutions we fund and design to protect the vulnerable might actually be giving cover to the bad actors.
Yes.
Simply because those bad actors fit a demographic profile we've, blindly decided is the default good guy. Society inadvertently builds a fortress around the perpetrator.
Leaving the actual victims completely exposed.
Right, which forces us to look at who is actually paying the price here. We've been talking about the father as the target of the manipulation, the one losing access and influence. But the author insists that the greatest victim of this warfare is rarely the father.
It is the child. The author uses the phrase collateral damage, and we really have to understand what that actually means for a developing human brain.
It's not just a bad weekend.
No, these children aren't just missing out on a weekend fishing trip or something. They are being raised inside an active environment of emotional warfare, and their brains are adapting to survive it.
The text lists the specific lessons these children internalize, and it's just heartbreaking. They learn that love is conditional.
Yeah.
They learn that loyalty matters more than truth. They learn that guilt is influence, and that relationships are essentially just power struggles.
Right.
But I want to understand how a child's brain absorbs those massive concepts just from living in a tense house.
It comes back to survival mechanisms. A child figures out very quickly that to maintain safety and reduce conflict in this house, they have to align with the mother's narrative.
Survival of the fittest, basically.
Right. They learn that love is conditional because affection is only granted when they reject the other parent. They learn that loyalty to the person in power matters more than the truth of their own memories. If they remember their dad being kind, but they are constantly told he is bad, their brain literally rewrites its own understanding of reality to appease the manipulator.
That is terrifying.
And because they are constantly made to feel guilty for, missing their dad, their brain internalizes guilt not as a negative emotion, but as a normal, everyday tool for human connection.
So for you listening to this right now, even if you don't have kids or you're happily single, this is a profound reminder of how our earliest environments script our baseline definitions of human connection.
Absolutely.
If your blueprint for love was drawn in a war zone, your entire internal wiring says peace is a trap and love is a negotiation.
Yeah.
How do you ever build a healthy, peaceful life later on?
The tragedy is that many don't. And that is the author's ultimate warning.
Yeah.
He writes, and years later, many carry those lessons into their own marriages, friendships, and families. The damage does not stop with one generation. It echoes into the next.
It's a generational echo.
Exactly. The true cost isn't a ruined holiday. It's the fundamental warping of that child's ability to trust or partner healthily 20 or 30 years down the line.
So we have this incredibly grim diagnosis of the problem, right? We have the leverage, the termite-like whispers, the societal blind spots, and the generational trauma.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. But the author actually frames this entire text as a dear son letter.
Oh, right.
The whole point of him putting this on paper is preventative wisdom. He is trying to give his son a roadmap to avoid stepping into this exact trap.
And his advice is strikingly pragmatic. It's almost an investigative approach to romance. He tells his son to step back from the infatuation phase and observe very specific behavioral markers in a partner.
He writes, pay attention to how a woman handles power before you ever make her a mother.
Such a powerful line.
And he lays out a checklist. Watch how she handles disagreement. Watch how she handles accountability. Watch how she speaks about people she no longer likes.
That is the ultimate litmus test. How someone treats their ex-friends, ex-partners, or even like a waiter who made a mistake is the most accurate preview of how they will treat you if you ever find yourself on the other side of the table from them.
The author draws a very clear line in the sand regarding what constitutes a healthy partner versus a dangerous one. He says a healthy woman protects the bond between father and child. A dangerous woman competes with it. But I feel like it's so easy to ignore those red flags when you're the one she's currently being sweet to,
Oh, completely.
If the conflict is directed at someone else, you just think, well, she's fiercely loyal to me.
Right, and this raises an important question about how willfully blind we can be in relationships.
Yeah.
When the manipulator is using their tactics against the outside world, the partner feels protected. But the author is warning his son that the tactics themselves do not disappear. The target just eventually changes.
Ah, I see.
If someone uses guilt, whispers, and leverage on others, they will eventually use those exact same tools on you when a disagreement arises.
Just a matter of time.
Exactly. You have to evaluate their conflict resolution skills when the stakes are low, long before you are permanently bound together by a child.
Because once that child arrives, the stakes become unimaginably high. The author elevates the process of partner selection from a fun romantic endeavor to literally the most critical, consequential decision of your entire life.
He really does.
He closes the letter with a warning that I think perfectly encapsulates the weight of everything we've discussed today. He says, choose wisely, son, because some mistakes cost money. Others cost your relationship with your children. And those are often the most expensive mistakes of all.
It strips away the fairy tale aspect of starting a family and treats the decision with the gravity it deserves.
Yeah.
You are choosing the person who will hold the most power over your future joy and the foundational psychological safety of your kids.
So what does this all mean when we pull it together?
I've covered a lot of ground.
We really have. We've journeyed through this stark letter from Kirthangala. We've explored how the deepest, most sacrificial love a parent has can be twisted into a weapon of leverage.
Yep.
We looked at the quiet, insidious tactics, those termites in the foundation that slowly erode a child's reality. We examined the massive societal failure where institutions rely on comforting mental shortcuts.
Assuming a title like mother automatically equates to virtue.
Right, which allows manipulators to operate in plain sight. We unpacked the devastating generational toll this takes on the children caught in the middle. And finally, we looked at the author's preventative advice to ruthlessly evaluate a partner's character and conflict resolution skills before tying your life to theirs.
The author makes a highly compelling case that our societal default, assuming motherhood automatically equals virtue, can blind us to emotional manipulation. We rely on that stereotype because it requires less cognitive energy than investigating the truth.
It's just easier.
It is. But this begs a much larger question for you to consider moving forward. What other deep-seated societal defaults or comforting stereotypes are you heavily relying on right now?
Oh, wow.
Whether it's in your workplace, the legal system, or just your daily interactions, where are you trusting a title instead of observing the behavior? And by doing so, who are the wrong people you might actually be protecting?
Man, that thought is going to sit with me for a while. Because at the end of the day, as much as we want to believe that turning the deadbolt protects us from the outside world, true safety doesn't come from just locking the door.
No, it doesn't.
It comes from having the courage to open your eyes and actually see the people standing inside the house with you. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.